boats on Tangier to get around?
Yeah, we did.
Little
We
guys?
grew up with boats, and I worked the waters a while around the island, crabbing, and then sometimes we would, if it wasn't crab hunting or something like that, we were offered a job to travel to Chincoteague, go out of Chincoteague Harbor on those big steel hull clam boats. And I think they're still doing that over there. But that was only 2 days a week we could do that, but we would leave the harbor, go out about 20, 30 miles offshore, and drop these big dredges over each side of the boat, and we would catch the clams, and then bring them in, and we did that for a while. But I got that kind of experience from before I got to Sun Oil, you know. But after we did get our schooling and get our endorsement, our license and everything, which was required, then we stayed with them almost 17, 18 years.
I mean, I would think that if a corporation is smart, they're gonna pick watermen from an island like Tangier.
Yeah, there were quite a
They've
few.
got the skills.
There were quite a few Tangier with that company.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
even on the boat that I was on. And anybody would
Whoa.
have the nerve to say, "Oh, the Chesapeake Bay, that's a small
No.
body of water." It's not. It has drowned a lot of people from Tangier and other islands and other places.
Mm-hmm.
Respect it. I don't care where you are. Respect the water. Respect the weather. I wanted to get an endorsement that would take me most anywhere on the water, you know, in the ocean. So we had to take celestial navigation, and I found that quite interesting. It took a while to get that endorsement, but we finally got it, and Sun Oil required it. So it wasn't something we just wanted to do to get. They required it because we were ocean going, operating, and this is a picture of the tug and the barge that we worked. That was taken in Puerto Rico, of course.
Can you explain?
Endorsement. They would send us anywhere. We went from anywhere from Portland, Maine, to Corpus Christi, Texas, Louisiana, the bayous, and also our longest journey was to Puerto Rico. That was a 7-day journey, and at that time, they did not have this navigation system called GPS, Global Positioning System. And that is, now they have it, and it's just like, I mean, if you take a trip, you know, if you take a voyage, if you have these GPS systems on board, they'll tell you exactly where they are and how long it's going to take you to get to your destination. It's just like reading a system in your car, you know, a navigation system. But at that time, they didn't have that when we were doing that. And the only way we could feel confident when we left the shoreline, after we got about 40 miles out, or maybe just a little less, our navigation system would go out. Loran C, it was called at the time. No longer any good because it would not pick up a signal from the shoreline. So we had to get celestial navigation because we were out at sea for 7 days, just steadily going east, maybe southeast a little. It's the stars. A 3-star fix is required to get a reliable fix in the ocean. So we had to shoot with our, what do you call those?
Sextant?
Sextant. With the sextant, we were able to shoot 3 stars, and through calculation, the tables that we had there, calculating tables of the different stars, we would estimate, we would mark it three different places, and that would give us a fix at the time where we were while shooting stars. But it had to be a beautiful night in order to see those stars. Marcus Hook. Well, I was on watch, and it was, at that time we stood 2 6-hour watches. And, well, actually it was 12 hours a day, but 2 6-hour watches. And then the other guy would come up and relieve me, and I could get 6 hours rest. But anyway, during my watch that afternoon, just before 6 p.m., because I got off at 6 p.m. and came back on at midnight, we hit a storm. A storm came, and we didn't anticipate it was going to be stormy like that. But the wind picked up, and it was blowing. It was heavy, and I guess it eventually led to about an 8 to 10 foot sea out there. And this sea, as we were headed for Delaware Bay entrance to go on up to to the refinery. The sea was pulling, and the barge behind us with that huge cable connected to it. It was surging. It would fall, and then it'd come tight, and eventually, because of the way it was, the sea was behind us and it was coming to us, and we couldn't help that. So we just hoped for the best. But along about 5:30, just before my watch was over, to get my relief come up, the line broke, the hawser. And the hawser I'm telling you about is between the tug and the barge. Mm-hmm. And it was about, I guess we could let it out almost 300 feet or something like that, the line, and let the tug or the barge get farther behind us. But anyway, the line separated from the barge that was connected to our tug, So we were in a predicament, and it was dark at the time, and the wind was, I'd say we had anywhere from 40 to 45 maybe more mile per hour wind. And it was raining so heavy, and it was kind of cold too. It was late fall, and I said, I'll tell you what, if you put me close enough to that barge, if you get this tug close enough and to the barge, and then in the middle of the barge we had steps, inserts in the side of the barge where you could climb up, like a ladder. It was basically a ladder, and you could put your feet in those inserts and just go on up to the top. And it was about 40 feet out of the water, that barge, because it was light. So it was really tall, about maybe 350 feet long, 400. That's how long it was. It was a huge piece of equipment. But what I did, I said, if you put me close enough to the barge, I'll get on the bow of the tug, and if you put me close enough, I can reach out and get it, and hold on to that ladder that goes up the side of the barge. And what I'll do is I'll pump water. What I did, our plan was, if I got on the barge, I volunteered. Nobody else did volunteer. They were just out there, but I just felt like it was my time to do something like that. So I didn't. After he put me close to the barge, I kind of reached out and held onto those handhold things and the end steps on the side of the barge, and I climbed up on the deck of the barge. I finally got there, but all at the same time, the barge was moving. I mean, it was rocking. I mean, it was bad. But anyway, thank the Lord, I got up to the top, and I got on the deck of the barge, and the first thing I did was to start the diesel engines that we used to pump the product off of the barge. Okay. I started them, and I opened up a valve that went to the seawater, not the cargo. I closed those cargo valves, and I opened up the seawater valve so we could take ballast on. Taking ballast on is pumping water from the ocean into the barge.
Right.
That's ballast. So what I did, I pumped the seawater. I took it, I think I took the barge down about maybe 10 feet or so, 12 feet, enough for it to stop the motion. So that barge was headed for the beach, there's no doubt. And we had a little bit of cargo left on board, jet fuel, in the number 5 fuel oil tanks. And if that barge had got to the beach, it would have spilled that cargo on the beach, and we'd been in really trouble. So anyway, we got it pumped down enough to slow the motion of the barge so it wouldn't drift so fast. But the storm was still out. We were still in the middle of the storm. I took no radio with me because our walkie-talkie radios, we had a problem with them. Why at that time? I don't know, at that particular time. So I could not keep in touch with the tug and the crew on the tug. But anyway, after that, I tried to lower the anchor, which we had on the bow of the barge. And when I was walking up from the stern to the bow of the barge, after I finished taking the ballast on the water, then I shut the engines down. I walked up in the middle of the barge so I wouldn't be blown over the side or something like that. But when I got up close, there was an open space there from the cargo tanks to the anchor. And there was a space there where you couldn't hold on to anything. And when I started walking away from the cargo tanks to the anchor, that wind, a gust of wind hit me and took me down on deck, and it blew me a little bit to the side. But what I did, we had side light posts up on the bow of the barge for our side lights on the barge. You're required to have them. And anyway, I held on to that, and I finally got to my feet again, and I just kept low, and I walked toward the anchor, and then I tried to I started the engine from the anchor, and we started lowering it, or not we. I think I got on there just about 6 p.m. the night before, and I stayed to about 7 or 8 a.m. the next morning. And so when daylight broke the next morning, we were going into the entrance of Delaware Bay. Thank the Lord, we missed the beach. So we did that. Wind would still drive me, because the tug could not come alongside and throw a line up. It was too rough and too risky. Yeah. So we had to wait for the barge to get inside and be in confined waters. We secured the barge, and then they took me up to they had a little clinic or a medical center there on the refinery. So they took me there, and they found out that, it was time for me to go home. And of course, we were going to have crew change in a few days anyway, and they let me go. But I'm just so thankful, the way things turned out. It could have been a lot worse. And that were basically the 2 incidents that I had while I was in the marine industry. You've got to respect Mother Nature. Don't second guess it. It doesn't work. And that if you do, you're not using good judgment.
I think that probably all of your childhood experience on the water, even subconsciously, you had ideas. You knew the water.
Yeah.
You knew the wind.
Yeah.
You knew what would happen with the waves.
Yeah. And I remember one time when I was on the bow of that barge, after that time I almost got blown over the side. I just started thinking about the Lord. I did, and that was one of my thoughts the whole time while I was out there. While I was still trying to keep everything under control. There was only so much I could do. Mm-hmm. Like I say, the anchor did not hold. It was still dragging along the bottom. But when we got it inside, we were able to wind it on board and stuff like that. But there's no doubt in my mind the good Lord was there that night. Mm-hmm. And I just realized that. And when I did get home, maybe a day or so later, I think it was the next morning, after I got home, I called our local pastor. What was his name? Michael Kubat. It was at that time. And I said, would you go out to breakfast? Could I buy you breakfast this morning? He said, yeah. He said, yes, I'll be glad to go. So I did, and that was the morning I gave my heart to the Lord. That same morning. And I thank God for the way things turned out. So we're never alone. And when we think we are, we're never alone. And what I did out there was by the grace of God, and it was with the strength that He gave me to do that. And I'll never forget it. And that's basically, that's what happened.